Hello, my name is Marina Iyeme-Eteng. First, I'd like to say thank you to Threads for inviting me to share my story. I am from Nigeria. I moved to Saskatoon 4.5 years ago with my husband and 2 children. I came in through the Federal Skilled Worker Program, what is now called the Federal Express Entry, and I had the option of landing anywhere in the country, but we chose to land in Saskatoon. And one question I get all the time is, why Saskatoon? Why Saskatchewan? For the longest time, my family had trouble pronouncing the name of the province that I lived in. I spent so much time explaining, transcribing, they still had difficulty pronouncing it. The main reason why we chose to live in Saskatoon was because the only friend we had in the entire country lived in Saskatoon. And because I was moving here with a family, it was important to us to have some kind of anchor, some kind of support on ground to make our transition easier. The major challenges that I had while I was in school was a sense of feeling really lost. In class where people share experiences, in class where we're told to share stories from childhood, from growing up, almost everybody else seemed to be able to relate to each other's story except me. They talked about sports they played growing up, talked about TV shows they watched growing up, or talked about things that were on the news while they were kids, the TV shows and things like that. I couldn't relate to any of it. I felt really lost. I felt somewhat lonely. But then I started to make friends. I knew that the responsibility was on me to reach out, to learn about other people and their cultures. I could not afford to sit back, stay in a shell, because I couldn't relate to the experiences. I knew this was home and I was going to have to build new experiences. So I reached out and started to make friends with people from other cultures, and that's when I started to learn about the Canadian culture. That's when I started to try out the things that were considered popular foods in Canada. I tried poutine in different styles, different flavors for the first time. It was fun trying that. It was fun now being able to open up and learn about this new place that we have started to call home. So far, I would say my life here, I have grown. I have grown from what it was when I first moved here to what it is now. I look back now and I see that there have been a lot of hurdles along the way, but in that, I have had a lot of high moments as well. Like when I got the award for best students, like when I got the jobs that I've gotten, like the opportunities that have been open to me, the opportunities that have been open to my children. I am very grateful for the life that I have here. I'm grateful for the opportunities that have been open to me here. I'm also proud of myself for how much transition it has been from the young me who wanted to experience life from a different country, and that's why I got up and left. I look back now, some days I question that life choice, but some other days I'm excited that I made that move, because it is hard being away from home. It is hard being away from what you're familiar with, being away from your family, being away from friends. My kids are away from their cousins, grandparents, and the people we know. It is hard. But looking back now, I would say I have been able to make a lot of progress in replicating that support that I had back home right here. I made friends from church, like I would have said. I made friends from school. There's an association of Nigerians here, and I've met other amazing Nigerians here as well who are able to directly relate with the struggles and have been able to offer specific support in the area that I truly needed it. I look back and I'm very grateful for all of it. I am grateful for all of it. Just how much I've been able to rebuild my circle, rebuild my support system. In Nigeria, typically, one way where people truly support each other, where there's a lot of support from one person to another, is at the point where you have a loss. When I suffered the loss of my mom, I had amazing support here that almost mimicked what I would have had if I were back home. Recently, my family suffered the loss of a friend back in Nigeria, and I mentioned it to my supervisor at work to say I had lost a friend. And immediately, people started to volunteer to do my work. I got so many calls just offering support. I got half the day off just so I could go be with my family. That's what would have happened if I were back in my home country. And that got me thinking, like, oh my God, this is home. It is the same, like this is home. It's no longer me feeling like a stranger in this country. I can finally sit back, relax, and enjoy Saskatoon and enjoy Canada as home, because I've been able to rebuild, come close to what I had back in Nigeria, and I couldn't be more grateful for that. In my journey so far, I have had the opportunity to meet and mix with a number of other immigrants from other countries. I am immediately able to connect with them and relate with the struggles that they have because I've been there. Because of that, I decided to start up a community on YouTube where the singular goal was to share my story, my experiences as a Nigerian who is living in Canada. It's different when an immigrant has to go on a website to look for information. Sometimes that information is in language that you may not necessarily understand. My goal was to translate the information on the website to a language, everyday language, that immigrants from all over the world, especially from Africa, can relate with. So I put myself out there. I consider myself a relatively private person, but I knew that that was something I had to do. And if it was going to end up helping one other person have an easier transition than I did, then I was more than willing to do that. So I started a community sometime last year and have just been sharing information, sharing about my family, sharing about tips, sharing about easy ways where people can find what. Sometimes it is as difficult as not knowing to go to get the special ingredient from your country because you want to make that dish that reminds you about home. That's what the goal was, to get that information right to the fingertips of immigrants so that your transition is easier. I have experienced tremendous support on that channel. I thought it was just going to be a journal where I did all the talking, and if nobody watched it, then it would be me just talking to camera and sharing my story. But surprisingly, in a space of 1 year, we have over 4,000 subscribers on that community right now, and the emails are unending. I respond to emails from people all over the world just asking questions about life in Saskatoon. I consider that my way of giving back. I consider my way of sharing in the success stories of other immigrants like me.
My name is Liwen. First of all, thank you very, very much for giving me the opportunity to speak at Threads. I am originally from China, so I came to Saskatoon in 2012 as an international student who studied Master of Finance at University of Saskatchewan. So I graduated in 2014, and I started looking for jobs, and then I started working for a local bank for about 4 years. So currently I am a financial analyst at a local firm. So when I first came to Canada as an international student, at that point I was about 22 years old. I was a single woman when I came. So I certainly had a lot of difficulties when I first came to Canada. Well, first of all, when I came here, it was the first time that I've ever had a chance to ride an airplane. And my first airplane experience was from my hometown to Shanghai, and then to Vancouver, and then transferred to Calgary, and then finally at Saskatoon. So it was over a whole day of traveling, and I was so exhausted when I arrived in Saskatoon at about 9 p.m. When I got here, it was just one day before the school start. It was the beginning of September, but it started to get cold already. So I was standing outside of my dormitory because it was at night. I didn't have a key back then. So I had to phone a friend and to snuggle with my friend's friends for a night until the next morning. So the first night was very hard for me. But I phoned my mother, and I happily told her that, Mom, hey, I got to Saskatoon, and I'm gonna start my new life here. When I think about the challenging time that my husband and I were facing, I think it was really important for the both of us to hold to each other and support each other mentally, especially because he was having a difficult time with his student life, especially he got into school after he in his early 30s, and that was not easy for him to study a brand new program. That was basically starting from zero for him. And it was not easy for me because earning a few $100s to support an apartment and a car wasn't easy at all. So I was grateful that my husband and we could support each other during the difficult time, and also we had a whole bunch of friends supporting us too, mentally and sometimes even financially. So we were very gracious and very grateful for that as well. So if some advice that I could give to the newcomers to Canada, well, first of all, I would, if time can go back again, then first of all, I would get a driver's license, because in Saskatoon, I think getting a driver's license is fairly important, because that is your way to connect to the city and get yourself familiarized with the city. Because as I was talking about my experience of not being able to get anywhere without a car, because the bus system in the city, I mean, nowadays is getting a lot better, but you know, sometimes there are still a lot of places where the buses can't get you there. So, and if you don't have a driver's license, then you will feel that the rest of the city is unreachable to you. And because the more you are familiarized with the city, then the more comfortable you will get, and the more settled you will feel. And the sooner you can get a driver's license, and then the sooner you can feel settled that, you know, the city is under the tip of your finger, then you can get to wherever you want to, then your life will be so much easier. And the second advice that I would give to the newcomers is that everybody would like to make friends, you know, when you first come here, and then you feel like you don't have any friends and you feel lonely. And a common challenge that people are facing is that they don't have the confidence, or they don't feel comfortable to talk to a person that comes from another country and speaking a completely different language. I had that challenge too, and when I face a person from that comes from another country, I felt like, you know, there were millions of what ifs that run through my mind. You know, what if that person doesn't want to talk to me, or I don't know that person's culture, and what if I say something that offends that other person, and what if my English isn't good enough? So there were millions of assumptions and what if that came through my mind first, you know, that I had to struggle like half an hour before I could open up my mouth and just to talk to that person. And I wanted to say that don't be afraid, and because when you think about that millions of what ifs, the other person is probably thinking the same thing too. He or she, they are probably afraid of offend you too, and you know, they don't know your culture either. So the feeling is mutual. So what you can do is that don't be afraid, and you can say to that person, you know, I'm a newcomer to Canada, and my English might not be that well, so forgive me if I can't really, you know, get to a point where you can't really understand me, then I'll repeat myself, or if you could maybe speak slowly, then that will help me understand, or then you can say, you know, so sorry, I don't know your culture really well, and if I say something that offends you, then please forgive me. But I really want to know more about your culture. So my advice is that don't be afraid of talking to a person that's from a different country, speaking to a different language, because that is the best chance that you practice your English and you get to know the world and you get to know a person that's from another culture. And I think that's why you came to Canada, right? Because you came to Canada, not only you wanted to start a new life, but also you wanted to know people from all around the world. You want to experience different cultures. That's why you came here, right?